Perfect. Hey, well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We are going to be talking about dispute resolution. And my name is Lisa Howell. I know you guys receive a lot of emails from me, and most of you know me. So I've just a quick introduction. I've been with Families Together for about 5 years, about 5.5 years, and the program director for Education Advocate for about a year and a half. And Brian, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi everyone, I'm Brian. I've been part of the Education Advocate team for about 2 years now. Yep. Hi.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to use Menti tonight. So if you could scan the QR code or go to www.menti.com and enter that code in. Okay, and it looks like we have 36 people with us, so we're going to wait for that number to get a little higher. Let us know if you have trouble getting in. And any questions tonight, feel free to come off mute and ask them or put them in the chat and we'll answer those. All right, the number is climbing. For those that just joined us, we are going to be using Menti tonight. So if you could please sign in on your phones or on a different tab in your computer. Okay, so Brian put the code in the chat. So we're going to go ahead and move forward just to conserve time. And we can put the QR code up again during our first Menti. All right, so real quick, we're going to review some education advocate things. Who is a parent? So in Kansas, in special education law, a parent is very specifically defined. It is a biological parent, an adoptive parent, and that means that the adoption has been finalized. A person acting as parent, which is a person such as a grandparent, a step parent, or other relative with whom a child lives. A legal guardian, and that means that the court has given letters of guardianship to one specific person, not the state, or an officially appointed education advocate. So let's real quick, feel free to put your answers in chat. When we talk about who has special education rights, there's a difference between the people that have general education rights, which follows the federal definition of parent, and that is someone who cares for the child. So foster parents, case managers have all those general education rights versus a special education someone who meets that definition of special education parent to do the special education paperwork. So signing a field trip permission form, does that fall under general education rights or special education rights? Feel free to come off mute or type it in the chat. You guys have it. That is a general education right. How about enrolling the child? Great job. That is general education right as well. How about signing that consent for a special education evaluation? Yep, that's going to be the person that meets that definition of parent under special education law. Great job. A power of attorney. Does a power of attorney turn over general education rights or general and special education rights? So this one is a little trickier. The power of attorney only transfers over general education rights. They have to meet that definition of parent under special education law, and nowhere in there does it talk about a parent being able to sign over those rights. What about adding an accommodation or service to the IEP?
Yes, you would.
That's special. Great job. What about scheduling that IEP meeting?
Special.
Absolutely right. That is the special education decision maker. And we want the foster parents and case team to be there because they are an important part of the child's team. But that scheduling does need to go through the advocate or someone that meets that definition of parent. What about 504 plans? Do those fall under general education or special education?
General.
Oh,
General.
so that is a general education action. 504 plans fall under ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, not IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So that is a general education. Foster parents can request, sign consent, and hold meetings for 504 plans. That's one of those things that we often suggest when a parent is uncooperative versus unavailable, because foster parents can do that. What about receiving IEP progress notes? Yep, that is special. Great job, guys. Okay, so who qualifies to have an education advocate appointed to them? They have to be between the ages of 3 and 18, or if their IEP team decides they need to attend an 18 to 21-year-old program. We will appoint an advocate at about age 2.5 because there has to be a special education decision maker to sign consent for that initial evaluation, that transfer from Part B to Part C. They have to be in the custody of the state, the Department of Corrections, or listed as homeless and unaccompanied under the McKinney-Vento Act with the school. They have to have unknown or unavailable parents, and they have to be receiving special education services or in need of an evaluation to determine eligibility. So what is that unavailable parent? That means that the rights have been terminated or relinquished. The parent is deceased. A court order of no contact exists, and the parent is not to know where the child is located. A court no contact order does not take away a parent's rights. So if it does not specifically say they're not to know where the child is located, they can still participate via video conference or phone. If we don't know who the parent is, or if we don't know where the parent is. And there is a difference between an unavailable parent and an unwilling parent. So an unavailable parent means the school, LEA, local education agency, DCF, Department of Corrections, has documented that reasonable efforts to locate the parents has been exercised, and they've determined that the whereabouts are unknown. This is called due diligence. And under law, due diligence is defined as of at least 2 attempts, 2 different ways. So phone number, physical address, email address. Social media does not count. We're not going to be sending special education paperwork through Facebook Messenger or Snapchat. So one of those 3 things. An unwilling or uncooperative parent is someone who can be reached, but is not responding to attempts. So how is an appointment made? We receive a referral, and that can be from the school, from the foster parents, from case team, from a CASA. Anyone can start a referral for us, and then we're going to process the referral. So we're going to make sure that they are in state custody or Department of Corrections, that parent rights are terminated or they are unavailable. And once we complete that referral, Brian is going to start making calls to find an advocate for them. We always start with the foster parents. We think foster parents are the best people to be advocates for kids because they see the kiddo before school and after school. Um, and then once assigned, we will send out an appointment letter to the advocate, to the case team, to the principal of the school they're attending, and to the district or cooperative special education director. Um, if a child is placed in your home, you still have to be officially appointed with an appointment letter. You don't automatically become that decision maker just by placement. We do have to still make that appointment. So you can just give us a call, send us an email, and we'll get that started. And we also, okay, we're going to do a Menti real quick. So if you could go back, Brian, we'll put that in the chat. And we want to know, what are some of the responsibilities of an education advocate? There are 5 correct answers. You guys are doing awesome. So requesting and consenting to that initial evaluation, signing consent, receiving the prior written notices, request and attend IEP meetings, and reviewing those progress reports. Great job, guys. Okay, so um, this is a new thing that we're trying to put together. We always talk to advocates when things seem to be going wrong. So we want to hear about your wins. So if you have any education wins, this QR code will send you to just a simple Google form where you can tell us how great your students are doing. And sometimes, it's a matter of, hey, my kiddo went 2 weeks without being suspended from school. That's a big win for a lot of our kiddos. We've had some where they moved to a least lesser restrictive environment. That's another huge win. And then one of my advocate kiddos won his school spelling bee. So that's a big win there as well. So we want to hear those wins. And before we start on this, I do want to take a minute. We are in we are needing advocates, especially in our Wichita area. So if you are willing to serve virtually statewide for children, if you could send Brian a message, put your name in the chat. Brian will take those down and get in contact with you. If you are also a foster parent and you are willing to be an advocate for students who are not in your home, please let us know that as well, because a lot of times when we fill out the application, we'll put, I want to advocate for my foster kids, but if you are if you're willing to serve for kids that are not in your home too, that would be helpful. All right, so tonight we are going to talk about dispute resolution and how to work with the school and resolve those disagreements that we might have. And there's 6 skills that we like to talk about. There's understanding your student, knowing the key players, knowing your rights and responsibilities, becoming well organized, using clear and effective communication, and then knowing how to resolve those disagreements. So we're going to break that down just a little bit. So our end goal is always to help our students achieve their best life. I truly believe that this is why you volunteer your time and dedicate your lives as foster parents, CASAS case managers, school employees. We want to make a difference. We want to help the students that come into our care achieve their best life, no matter what obstacles they've faced at such a young age. And I truly believe that this is true for our educators also. We need to know what our child's strengths are. We need to know what their needs are. Where do they need extra help? My son Gavin, his strengths are that he keeps trying no matter how hard it gets. He's a great mentor. He loves teaching others skills that he's learned, and he's very patient while he does it. He strives every day to be better than he was yesterday, and he's amazing at diffusing tense situations. If someone is starting to get upset, then he'll ask what's wrong, make them laugh, and help them figure it out. Where he needs help, he's shy. He doesn't like to ask for help. He can be very hard on himself, and he gets tired of his disability and being different. But we need to figure out those positives and those needs. And then we also need to have high expectations. Every child is different. With my children, I have 4, and my expectations were not the same for all of them. So, what are some of the expectations that the school needs to have for our student? We need to set goals, foster independence, learn how to function in society, be independent. And then we need to figure out what accommodations and resources they'll need to reach those goals and expectations that we set. One of the ways that we do that is charting the life course. This is a great tool to help your student determine what their best life is. We can use this as a 1-year goal, as a 5-year goal, or even just as a school day goal. And the trajectory is one of the tools that's available. So we ask, what do you want at school? If you could have your perfect day at school, what would it look like? What do you not like at school? And a lot of times asking what they don't like can lead us to what we do want. For example, some students that I've asked this question to say, I don't want to sit alone at lunch. I don't want to be left out at recess. I don't want to be scared that a teacher's going to call on me. So a lot of times finding those answers to what we don't want can help us find out what we do want. Executive functions are another big thing that we need to look at. They help children develop skills of teamwork, leadership, decision-making, working towards goals, critical thinking, and being aware of our own emotions. These are core skills that help our children live independently and have successful lives. Learning these skills will definitely start ourselves and our children on the trajectory to a good life. And this is the College and Career Readiness Framework. They also call it the Kansans Can Competency Framework, and it promotes each of the design pillars, and they are matched to social and emotional standards that the State Board of Education has set for schools. And if you go to this website, I don't think I'm going to be able to click on it and show you, but if you hover over, say you hover over social awareness, it will come up with a Padlet that gives different accommodations and different ways that you can work on that in school for ages K through 12. And it's really a cool little asset to use. So knowing the key players, in order to effectively advocate for our children, we need to know who to talk to, who actually has the authority to make decisions and changes, what is and who is in the hierarchy. I always like to start with a person directly working with my child, their teacher. I'm going to use Gavin again as an example. He was having issues on a new platform in his science class, and I spoke to the science teacher because I was concerned that Gavin had A's and B's for all of the assignments except for the ones on this particular platform, where his grades were all D's and F's. I emailed the teacher, and he suggested to give him some time to get used to the program as we were only a couple weeks into school. 2 weeks later, again, I hadn't seen any changes, so I emailed the teacher again, and then I added on the IEP coordinator. So now the science teacher and the para that was in that class to help Gavin are going to watch him to determine if it is the platform that he's struggling with or if it was the curriculum. And the IEP coordinator was able to say, let's send correspondence next week to see what the observations show. So if you feel like you need more help than the one teacher can give you, go to the next person on that hierarchy or chain of command. We begin with the teacher, add in that IEP coordinator or case manager, special education teacher. Districts have different names for them. And after that, maybe we're adding in the building administration, the principal or the vice principal. And then we can move up to the district assistant directors, student service directors, or special education directors. And we keep adding them on within, give 2 or 3 days between emails until we start to get some communication on how to solve our problem. You can find most of that contact information on the district websites, and you should be able to search the school or district name and find out who that administration or district level of employee is. So the next thing we want to do is know our rights and responsibilities. Parents, and that term coincides with education advocates. The rights and responsibilities are kind of difficult to understand. Sometimes it's another language. And there are so many state and federal laws and regulations, district policies. No one can know everything. So we can help with that. What we do is help you determine what you need, help you find information and options, brainstorm, and discuss how to use that information to help your student. Knowledge is power, and if you don't know what options are available, then you don't know what to ask for. If you feel like your concerns are not being addressed properly, always ask for an IEP meeting. Sometimes getting everyone around the table is the easiest way to make sure your concerns are being heard. And it's also important to remember that just because you think something will help or a medical professional has recommended something, that does not mean that it will be implemented into the IEP. The school must have data showing that additional services, accommodations, or modifications are based on a need that the child has in the school environment. We hear in IEP meetings sometimes also, well, that goes against district policy. If you ever hear verbiage like that, ask for the policy. Ask questions. I love Ted Lasso, and I actually have a sticker on my computer that says, be curious, not judgmental. You can absolutely say things like, oh, I had heard differently. May I please see the district policy for that? Ask questions and ask for the policy. So the next thing we want to do is become well organized. Data, data, data. That's a word that we hear and say a lot. If you have the data showing why your child needs extra help or an accommodation or an evaluation or a special service, you're more likely to receive those services. So keep records, have a notebook with relevant data to bring up in meetings with you. Print important emails, keep a list of names and contacts. It is always best to get as many things in writing as possible, and this includes copies of letters, emails you send yourself. We have a saying in the advocacy circle that if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. If you have if someone may have told you something on the phone or in a hallway conversation, it may mean nothing because it wasn't documented in writing. So write an email saying something like, thank you for talking to me today. I think what you said was blank, 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 and that you will blank, blank, blank. Take notes during meetings. I always like to take notes on the last agreed upon IEP because then I know what changes to look for when I get the prior written notice. I'll make notes on the current IEP, mark any changes that the team is wanting to make, and then I can compare those changes with what is sent over in the prior written notice after the meeting, because the prior written notice is what documents any updates. And actually updates the IEP. If it's not in that prior written notice, it's not going to be in the new IEP. This is an example that an advocate sent me. It's a document that we can keep for our students. It just gives basic information. I can keep it in a folder on my computer with the most recent IEP and any evaluations. It's just a cool, neat little thing. I will attach this with a copy of the slides and the certificate of completion that will be sent out after the training. So we want to make sure to use clear and effective communication. And there's three types of communication. There's passive communication, putting the rights of others before our own. So this is going to be soft spoken, a lack of confidence, feeling like I don't want to say that because it will make them angry, or I really don't know what I'm talking about, so I'll just assume they know what is best. Aggressive communication is going to be standing up for your rights at the expense of other rights. That looks like getting easily frustrated, speaking loud, unwilling to compromise, interrupts, thinking, I can't believe they think I'm this stupid, or I know what my child needs and I won't settle for anything less than I want. But we want to end up right in the middle in that assertive communication. We want to stand up for our rights and our child's rights while maintaining respect for the rights of others. We want to listen. We want to be willing to compromise. We want to be confident. We want to clearly say what we need and want. Saying things like, that doesn't sound right. May I please see your district policy that states that? Or I can see how you want to try this before talking about more services. How about we meet in 2 weeks and see how it's working? So some tips for good communication. We want to focus on our goal, and that is what the student needs. Keep the focus on what the student needs and not on the solution or service we want. Use data or facts instead of opinion to support what we think our student needs. The school is going to use data too. So if you or professionals do state an opinion, just be sure everyone knows it's an opinion and not a fact. We want to problem solve together to find solutions. Bring the problem to the discussion table, not the solution. Describe the problem clearly, encourage input, brainstorm without evaluating the ideas, choose a solution by consensus, develop a plan, put it in writing, create a timeline to evaluate success, and then follow up to make sure that that plan is implemented. We want to show respect and expect it from others. Greet them, listen without interrupting. When you disagree, say why. If they say no or we can't do that, ask for the policy that states that. We are all on the same team, and that is our students' team. The Individualized Education Program, Gavin's education program. Speak clearly, be as clear and direct as possible so that others will understand what you have to say. Give specific examples if you can. Instead of saying she always has a stomach ache, you might say she always has a stomach ache when she gets home from school. Describe why something will help or how it will help. If you say my child needs para support, what could you add to explain why or how that will help? Avoid making people feel defensive. Don't criticize. Give positive feedback. When people don't listen, they are unlikely to do what you think they should do. We want to turn negatives into positives. How take a negative comment made about your child and turn it into a positive. For example, he's always fighting could mean it looks like my child needs to learn social skills. And ask questions. One of my favorite, and this goes back to Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental. What reading program will be used to teach my child instead of you're not teaching him to read? When will I be able to view my child's district and state assessment scores? If the teacher says we take state assessments in February, would March be a good time to get those results? And then saying thank you. A simple thank you goes a long way. So written communication, we want to make sure that we are sending it to a person who can make a change. We want to make sure that it is dated and signed. And we want to focus on one or two issues, not a whole laundry list. Sometimes our most important issues get lost when we list everything. We want to be clear and concise and have an email be no longer than 1 page. We want to set a deadline if a reply is requested. In Kansas, a reasonable amount of time is 10 to 15 school days. Make sure they have your contact information and know how to contact you, and copy yourself so you can put it in a folder. So when we disagree, disagreements are going to happen. Honorable intentions is a phrase that I repeat to myself often. When I presume that everyone around the table has my students' best interest at heart, we are then entering the conversation with a problem-solving attitude versus a me against them attitude. Educators can be bogged down by policies and budgets and all of those other workplace politics. But at the end of the day, I presume that everyone has honorable intentions toward my child, and this helps me communicate assertively versus aggressively. We want to be an asset to the team, not an adversary. So when we do disagree, it's usually best to use informal means. Like we talked about before, start your efforts at the level closest to the problem. Talk to people, the teacher, case manager, service provider about your concerns. Often a compromise or trial solution may work. You may say, I don't really know if this would work, but could we try this until the end of the quarter and meet back to see how it goes? If progress was not made, consider adding in more people to get their ideas. And if that doesn't work, we do have some formal processes that are available when we have an IEP in place. And there's 3 of them: mediation, formal complaint, and due process. And we're going to look a little bit closer into each one of those. So in the mediation, a mediator is assigned by the special education department at KSTE to act as a facilitator between the parents and the school district. The mediator attempts to keep the focus of discussion on working towards solutions and helping the parties reach agreement. If an agreement is reached, the mediator puts the agreement in writing and asks the parties to sign it. A mediator does not have any authority to make any decision with regard to the final resolution of the dispute. They're simply there to mediate between the parties to find a consensus. The mediator is provided by KSDE at no cost to the parent or the school district. It is a voluntary process and is available only when both parties agree to participate. Discussions during mediation remain confidential and cannot be used as evidence in due process hearing or court action if it goes that far. The goal of the parties is to reach an agreement that is workable for all. Mediation uses the strength of both parties and schools, and this is one of the things that we recommend the most often. Mediation is usually really good for that gray area. So the definition of appropriate in free, appropriate public education, placement issues, specific wording. Mediation can be a great choice if you're having that disagreement with the school. The next one is a formal complaint. A parent or any person or organization may file a formal complaint if they believe that the district is not complying with state or federal special education law. So black and white, the law says this and you are not doing it. The IEPC says this and it's not being done. This can be used for students with all exceptionalities, including giftedness. And the formal complaint must be for a situation that occurred during the past calendar year. When you wish to file a state complaint, you complete a formal complaint form and we can give that to you. And the form is sent to the compliance monitor at the Kansas State Department of Education. The federal law says the department has 60 days to investigate and issue a written decision. The investigator may review written records and they'll interview both the school district and the parent. It again must be based upon a violation of a special education law or regulation. Parents may wish to contact families together to see if their complaint is indeed based on a violation of law. And additionally, parents will be asked to provide KSDE with a satisfactory corrective action. So let's say your child was to receive 2 sessions of speech therapy for 20 minutes per week, and the speech therapist went on maternity leave for 8 weeks and the school did not provide a substitute. This would be a violation, and the corrective action might be 16 sessions of speech therapy totaling 320 minutes of service time, so compensatory services. Serena asked, what about filing a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights? You can do that. That is usually for 504 plans because the Office of Civil Rights oversees ADA. And that is also going to the federal level versus the state level. So usually if you file for special education at OCR, they'll ask if you have filed at the state level first. But it is on their website, and that is an option. So state complaints must be written, again, that have occurred not more than 1 year from the date a complaint is received, unless the violation is still continuing, or they're seeking compensatory education for a violation. And then again, they'll ask what you think would make this better. If you do compensatory services, we do want to make sure it's not too overwhelming for your child. And then we can also ask for additional training for the district and staff. So I mentioned earlier that there is a 60-day federal timeline, but Kansas is a 2-tier state. And so Kansas will have the completion of the complaint and I'm sorry, guys, that word just completely left me. For the investigation and the decision to be issued. So that first 30 days is used for the investigation and the decision, and then the next 30 days is used for the school to appeal the decision, or the parent only to change that. And so it's not a long drawn out process. Both formal complaints and mediation get resolved pretty quickly. And then our third option is going to be due process. We recommend that due process only be considered as a last resort when all other avenues of resolution have been exhausted. And this slide shows some of the requirements and apparently a big red mark, which we will look at that. But this slide shows some of the requirements of a parent when a due process hearing is requested, as well as when the school district must provide. So detailed information about filing for a due process hearing can be found in the Kansas Special Education Process Handbook. Be very thoughtful when you do this. If you do choose due process, you will want an attorney. The school will have their attorney. For advocates, if you find yourself in a sticky situation, most kids have a guardian ad litem and you can contact them. There are also the DRC Disability Rights Center. We have a memorandum of understanding where we refer families to each other. One of the things that I like about DRC is that they will talk to you about your situation. They serve birth to death. They do take on mostly systemic cases that help a lot of students, but if they do take it on, it's free. And oh, the red mark was drawn on Minty, not the side itself. Thanks, Brian. So we do have very specific rules and timelines for due process. And this slide highlights 2 very important ones. 45 days from the receipt of the request for hearing, a decision is reached and a copy of that decision is mailed to each party. And then 30 days from the request to review the hearing decision, a decision is reached and a copy is mailed to each party. Either party involved in a due process hearing may appeal a decision from the hearing officer, and then to further appeal that decision to state review officer or a state or federal court. So there is another, within 15 days of the due process hearing request, the school is required to convene a meeting with the parents and relevant members of the IEP team with specific knowledge of the facts to discuss and attempt to resolve the issue. The meeting must include someone from the district and may not include a district attorney unless the parents or advocate bring an attorney. The parties may agree in writing to waive the meeting or agree to use mediation. And the school made request to dismiss the request for a hearing if the parents do not make themselves available for the resolution session. If the school has not resolved the issue to satisfaction of the parents within 30 days of the receipt of the hearing request, then the due process hearing will continue. All right, guys, we are almost done. Let's do another Menti real quick. And let me see if I can get this off the screen. Why would mediation be a good option for parents and education advocates? Eraser. Unable to compromise, restitution free, they're in disagreement. It is faster, yes, to resolve problems. There's a violation. To get on the same page, I like that one. Impartial, neutral. Treats both parties objectively, yep. If you're unable to compromise, unbiased opinion, great job. And I like that faster, impartial, free, and compromise are the biggest words there. It does take a village and sometimes a city. Great job. All right, this is our evaluation. We are going to hide the responses and they're all anonymous. So if you could just rate those. And while we have this slide up, does anyone have any questions?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
What if you had been appointed and there, I had been appointed to a student? It's moving towards a 504 after
Okay.
meeting with everybody. So at that point, do I bow out as the educational advocate? Like, what do I need to do now?
Yes, so if the school and if you agree that a 504 is better or should be tried first, just let us know and we'll cancel you as the education advocate. If the 504 plan doesn't work and they need an advocate appointed again to request that evaluation and you would like to be contacted if that happens, just let us know too, and we'll make a note in the child's file that to call you back if they need special education evaluation if that comes up again. But yep, the foster parent will take over that 504 plan. And we'll try to keep you on to help set it up just because you're there through the evaluations. You've looked at the student's needs and records and stuff like that. But as soon as that's in place, we'll cancel.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? There are more lines. That is so annoying. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, so real quick, are there any specific topics that you would like to see covered in an upcoming training? We are going to have a new training on our March luncheon. That's actually an evening one, our March evening one from 6:30 to 7:30. We are going to go through a redacted IEP together so that we can look at an actual IEP, and I can help guide you what to look for, what questions to ask, and things like that. So that's coming up for our March one. It's from 6:30 to 7:30 if you guys would like to take part in that.
We did have another question from Cassandra. What progress reports
Yes.
are provided with a 504 plan?
There usually aren't. There are no, that is not a requirement under 504s. You can absolutely put that as an accommodation in the 504 plan that you would like to get progress reports. And well, that's kind of difficult too. So progress reports on IEP are towards goals. And 504 plans do not have goals. 504 plans only have accommodations and modifications. If you would like to receive a copy of their behavior chart, though, you can ask that to be sent to you at the end of the week, or something like that. Yes, Denise, I can email that to you. Crash course for general education teachers. That's our full day training. We actually have 2 virtual trainings coming up. One in November. I'm going to go on to the next slide. Looks like a couple people are still typing. We have 2 full day trainings coming up, one on November 19th, which is a Wednesday, and then we're doing a Saturday training on January 24th. And those are those dates there. Yep, that's a great idea, Rachel, as well. Rachel said in 504s, an accommodation is to contact home, guardians, or family when grades drop to blank. That's a great idea. All right, guys, here is our link to our Padlet. Are there any other questions? Okay. Well, I really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. And like always, if you have any questions at all or want to run something by us, just give us a call or send us an email. Our job is to be here for you. So have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.